What we inherently do is we try and love other people the way we want to be loved. But as you've seen, that doesn't always equate.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast blending soul and science-based strategies to empower pandemic moms like you, raising kindergarten-ready kids. I'm Cara Tyrrell, your host, a lifetime lover of littles, girl mom, early childhood educator, and conscious parenting coach who truly believes that how we connect and collaborate with our kids in the first 5 years is how we raise world-ready kids who will change this world. Today's guest blew my mind. Michelle Purta is here. She is the host of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast, and we talked all about prioritizing your marriage, even though you are a mom and have little kids. And honestly, it became into kind of a little bit of a mini therapy session for me, and you are going to want to hear it. After spending years of struggling in relationships and not knowing how to feel seen and heard, Michelle takes everything she's learned, including her degree in psychology, and it tells us what it takes to be happily married, even when we are actively parenting together. She's a certified life and success coach, an NLP. She's practiced hypnosis and EFT, and she's broken the cycle of being the child with parents who did not model healthy relationships for her. Take everything that you can from this episode and apply it to your relationship. Michelle, thank you so much for being here. The topic that everybody wants to talk about: how to prioritize our marriage and our relationship after kids come into our life. So we are so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with who you are before we dive into the marriage piece, because I've had lots of conversations with you in different settings, and I get such a beautiful vibe from you. And I know that it's from your ability to be a life coach, right? You have this EFT that you like to use to ground and calm yourself. And you are also cycle breaking out of relationships that were modeled for you that you are not interested in modeling for your kids. So tell us more about just who you are and how this idea of relationship prioritizing became so important to you.
Yeah, so I was not modeled how to be successful in a marriage at all, right? Just like many people out there, they just grow up in their family and things are as they are, and you kind of take that with you and make that your normal. Well, I refused to take my model and make it my normal. And growing up, like my mom was very, very typical of that generation, very much like that martyr, did everything for the kids, did everything for the house, except she also worked full time. Wow. So she had, let's call it 2 full-time jobs, maybe even 3, right? Because taking care of the house is its own job as well. Meanwhile, my dad didn't have a model for him to be a present, engaged father or partner. And so he did what he knew, which was to focus on what filled him up, what he enjoyed doing. And he didn't maybe have that relationship with his dad to really understand how to nurture a marriage, how to nurture being like a father figure. And so I picked up a lot of communication habits that weren't so great, because if you don't have an example, you kind of just do what you do, right? Like, take me as I am. Take it or leave it. This is how I communicate. And I think a lot of people are like that. And I was like that too. So I saw my mom not ever communicate what she needed. She would get all these frustrations pent up inside, explode, go hide in her room, give silent treatment. My dad was just very like, anytime he was frustrated, he would start to yell, right? Not healthy in any sense. And so, of course, I took a combination of that into my relationships. And I didn't realize until several relationships later that no matter what relationship I was in, no matter who I was dating, I was still encountering the same problems in the relationship. Same dynamic, different person. Repeat, rinse, everything. Right. And so I had to really take a look in the mirror and say, okay, what's the common denominator here? It's me. Right. And when I finally owned up to that, not to say that they didn't contribute to, the outcome of the relationship. I'm not taking full fault, but I definitely played a role. I definitely contributed. So if I wanted the type of relationship that I thought was only meant for other people, which is BS, okay, I had to really take a look at myself and have the courage to grow. Because growing is not fun most times, right? It really forces you to look at the sides that you don't like about yourself and admit that you are not perfect and admit that you have things to change about yourself. And when you've been a certain way for decades, it's really challenging to figure out, okay, well, what do I need to unlearn? What do I need to do differently? And why does it feel so foreign and forced and unnatural? Because I naturally want to get angry and blame you and criticize you and play the victim. But in the long run, does that create the relationship that I desire? The answer I came up with is no. So I went through a long journey. I even did yoga teacher training. I studied communication on my own. I worked with a life coach. I became a life coach. And now I'm really adamant about breaking cycles of all kinds, right? Breaking cycles of moms feeling like they have to do it all, be it all, and sacrifice themselves, right? Be there for other people at their expense. I unsubscribe to that. I also am here to break the cycle of feeling like you have to choose between being a great mom and having a thriving marriage. I believe you can have both, and I believe that they are tied together. When you have a successful marriage, it makes it much easier to have that sense of fulfillment that you are being a great mom, right? And so I believe that having a successful marriage really just comes down to having the skills to be able to communicate in a healthy way, to think intentionally in your relationship so that you are building your life around having a successful marriage rather than taking a look at what was I given? What have we signed up for? What do I believe makes a good mom? And, let me see if I could fit in my marriage. Let me see if I could fit in taking care of myself. So I'm really here to help others challenge our idea of what it looks like to be a mom, to be a woman, to be a wife, and do it our way.
Ooh, I think you just gave us a mini TED Talk right there. That hit me in so many different places. And as you were talking, I was just thinking back, right? Because I am on the other side of the journey. I had a relationship that turned into a marriage and then kids who are now adults. And so the marriage is now the focal point again, whether we're ready for that or not. And there's been a lot going on lately and a lot of new conversations between us, realizing just how much prioritizing of the kids we did do over the last 18 and 20 years, respectively. And that when we did decide to prioritize, air quotes here, ourselves, it was called date night. And we barely interacted. We're sitting at a table eating a meal at a restaurant. Okay, what are we talking about? Probably kids. We're at a movie watching a screen together, eating popcorn. That's a special treat. Cool. No actual interacting. So when you are talking to people about prioritizing their marriage while they have kids of all ages, what are some of the things that you recommend they do that doesn't fit in again to that cookie cutter mold of, this is how you date after kids?
Yeah, it's so funny. While those dates are fun, and fun is an aspect that is critical to have in your relationship, you also all desire a sense of depth and intimacy, right? I don't just mean physical, I also mean emotional, right? That feeling of we are connected, we are best friends. I can tell you anything and feel safe to do so, respectfully, obviously. And I really feel like we have each other's backs. We're dreaming together, we're tackling each other's fears together. We are connected as a couple, not just co-parents, right? I joke with my son, his favorite way to hang out with me is to watch a movie together. I'm like, so your favorite way to hang out is to sit in a dark room and not talk. I don't think he realized what that meant, right? And so ever since then, he's been a little bit more engaging about how he interacts with me, because how can you possibly build a relationship sitting in peace?
Right.
Some of the time it's fine, but are you deepening the connection? No. And so a lot of times when you think of prioritizing your relationship as you are raising kids, you think, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, right? And especially if you feel a little bit overwhelmed by everything, and maybe you haven't communicated your needs and the level of support that you need from your partner, you could feel resentful, which can lead to not feeling motivated to even engage, right? So maybe once the kids are in bed, you're like, okay, we each go our separate ways. You go on your phone, I'll go on mine. Maybe we're in the same bed, but we're not interacting with each other. We might as well be alone. And I think what happens as we think about connection in a like well-shaped or wrapped present, where it's like it has to look like this. It has to fit into this box. But connection can even happen in micro moments, in passing, through a text message, or doing things for each other subtly, having small conversations, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, we have to have 2-3 hours of time alone, right? If you're a parent with young kids, you know that that's almost impossible, especially when you don't have reliable, trustworthy childcare.
Exactly.
Right? And so what then for them, right? They're out of luck. That's not true. It could be easy to default to that. Well, okay, well, we brought these kids into the world. We need to focus on them. They need us. We can handle ourselves. We can wait. But can you wait? Right? Because when you two are not connecting, communication falls by the wayside. When communication falls, more fights happen, the tension and the vibe of the home just breaks down, which creates more difficulty with child rearing. But also, if you hit the fast forward button, what happens then? You have someone like you, right? Kids are gone. You're in a sense empty nesting. And you're now with this person, not saying this is your marriage, but in this scenario, you could be with this person that you call your partner, but feels like a stranger. And you have no idea how to talk to them, what to do with them. Even if you make plans, it feels kind of awkward, not natural, right? So even though you have this long history of being married, time alone does not equate to a strong connection. Right? Like, I hate when people brag about how long they've been married, because that doesn't matter, honestly. Right? You could be married for 50 years and be the unhealthiest couple. You could be married for 2 years and be the healthiest couple. It all depends on the intent, the commitment, the energy you put into it. And that is what creates a healthy relationship. It's not like you can just, oh, we have kids. Okay, let's freeze our relationship like you freeze your eggs, right? Like, let's freeze it. And when we're ready, we're going to thaw it out and it'll be like normal again.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. You have to continuously dedicate time, energy, emotion, growth for you to get to that point where you're at Cara's stage or phase of life and you're like, finally, we've done our job. We can have so much free time. Let's go on vacation. Let's go sit on the deck and sip wine while we just savor in the sun, like relish in life, instead of feeling like our buffers are gone. Now what?
Wow. Yes, I hear so much of what you're saying in different measure. And I'm noticing that both can be true, right? You can have a
Yes.
little bit of confusion and discomfort and, oh, this is new and different again. And actually, we did our job. One of the reasons that we intentionally chose to have all our kids by the age of 30 was that when they were adults, we would be in our mid to late 40s and have the energy and the health to do things like share time and travel together. So that is exciting to look forward to. What is different is that every single day in the home without kids. So that's my unique experience. So for people who want to get here in 15 years and they want to be really ready, what type of shared family activities do you do kind of as a ritual, if you will? Maybe you do something weekly with just your husband and you earmark that as just your time, but you do something weekly as a family, modeling that beautiful connection and that open communication so that your kids have that model for their future relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it comes down to being intentional about how you build your life. What does your schedule look like? And communicating the why behind the schedule. So for us, which this can look different for everyone, right? Like there is not one way. It's what works for your family. Okay. Just want to put that out there. So for us, it looks like connecting at least twice a week, me and my husband. So we have dedicated Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are the days where we have less activities for the kids. And so that means that the day is just less stressful in general. So we have the energy left over to hang out with each other, right? And so we have a schedule that we follow. Dinner by 6, kids get ready for bed. If they're ready for bed early enough, we can then sit down, we can play a card game together. Lately, we've been into Monopoly Bid. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend it. We also play Uno Flip, or we play Memory with my 3-year-old. And then they go up, we do the whole bedtime routine for the younger two. I have a 13-and-a-half-year-old, almost 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old, just for reference. They go up to bed. And, we tell them, okay, well, it's 9 o'clock if it gets to that point. Daddy and I are going to hang out now. Okay. So you can read in your room with just your nightlight, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. We love you. Goodbye. That's it. That way they know, oh, they're hanging out. This is normal. Mom and dads hang out after they're done with us. Okay. And so if they ever ask us why, it's like, whoa, because we like each other. And sometimes we just like to have alone time with each other, just like how sometimes you like to have alone time with me. We want to make sure that we're happy and strong so we can be better parents for you. Okay.
And that's how kids are. They're like, oh, that makes sense. Great. Let's move on.
Exactly. Right. And so on the other nights, we will make sure that we have family time with them. Again, playing cards, whatever. But spontaneously, if we ever go on family walks, we let the kids go ahead in a safe range. My husband and I, Steven, we hang back, hold hands, and almost like treat that as a mini date. We're talking about stuff, stuff that's coming up for us, or things that we want to share with each other that maybe we haven't had the space to share because the kids are just like, everything switches every 5 seconds and we don't have much time to focus. And we just relish in that moment. Or we take advantage of like going to Costco together. Like, oh, we don't have any kids together. It's a date. And we intentionally choose it and treat it like a date, right? We will hold hands on purpose. We will talk about stuff aside from the kids and responsibilities. Maybe I'll talk about my business and where I want to take it, or I'll check in with him, like what's going on with you, so that we can treat each other like adults, not just co-parents.
I love this. So when I listen to you talk, I hear things like micro moments, right? Being able to identify them and know you're in one, and then choose your experience while you're in it. That is powerful stuff.
It's just a perspective shift, really. You could look at it like, oh, we're just going to Costco. What's the big deal? Okay, well, that's an opportunity for you to make it a big deal. Obviously, your relationship can't just thrive off of like trips to Costco together or trips to Target together, but it helps bridge the gap between your last date and your next date, right? And it's in those micro moments of like them coming home if they work outside of the home and you greeting them with a smile, right? And or you sending them a text saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you," or "Hey, I wanted to, see what you wanted to have for dinner tonight. I'll make it," or, "Is there anything that you want from Trader Joe's?" Just showing that you're caring in different ways. Sometimes I randomly just go like sit on my husband's lap while he's working, obviously not in a meeting, but like just wanted to give you a hug, like just random drive-bys of affection.
Aw.
Like anything like that. When you're passing them along the kitchen, maybe you touch their shoulder or, give them head scratches at night. Something to connect, something to demonstrate, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I love you. I care for you. I want to connect, right? And making sure that you have those set days where you're going to connect, like our Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if one of those days doesn't work, we reschedule it right then and there. So we know when it's going to happen. Not like, oh, one day we're going to connect. Don't know when that'll be, but one day.
Hey, Mama. Cara here, just hopping in to say how impressed I am by you and your dedication to raise a whole child who will be world and school ready. You know that parenting is a job, a job job, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to know what you don't know. And that's what I'm here for. My Transforming the Toddler Years course is currently closed, but I am accepting one-on-one clients who are looking to make massive transformation inside their home. If you're feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, and that you're in survival mode all day, every day, but you wake up determined to be intentional, calm, and connected so that you can help your child thrive, I can help. Schedule a complimentary connection call with the link in the show notes to share your parenting journey and your current struggles. Let's see how we can work together to help you transform the toddler years. My head is in 27 places right now because I am obsessed with social psychology, and I'm hearing so much of those themes running through what you're saying.
I was a psych major.
Yeah, exactly. You were a psych major, of course. I remember a long time ago going to a workshop with my husband when the kids were little on the 5 love languages.
Yes.
And we walked away. Don't ask me to say them all. I won't remember them all, but I can tell you, we walked away realizing that my number one love language was communication and connection, emotion. And his number one was physical touch. And I went, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
If we're on opposite ends of the 0 to 5 love language spectrum, how do I be compassionate and empathetic and honor his when he has that much difficulty honoring mine? Because just sending me a random text or checking in on my emotional quotient for the day is just not on his radar. How do you counsel people who really, truly love each other? They've built a life together and they have kids together, but their number one way of feeling connected are 2 different things.
Yeah. A lot of communication, a lot of working towards each other and compassion, right? Because it's foreign. It's not natural. Because what we inherently do is we try and love other people the way we want to be loved.
Oh, yeah.
But as you've seen, that doesn't always equate. And so sometimes you kind of have to take a step back and say, well, I'm not being very logical about this because I'm putting all this effort to show him I love him. But all that effort is, in a sense, going wasted. Not wasted. I would say it's not as effective as I would like it to be. right? And so if you're really going for, the bang for your buck as a mom, which most people want to do because like we really are limited in our resources of time and energy, then we have to think, okay, what's something that I can do easily that fills his cup his way? You can even ask for ideas. I love these connection questions that you can ask your spouse, like, hey, when was the last time that you really felt loved by me? What did I do? So, A, you're asking what you've done. So if you've already done it before, maybe it's not so difficult for you to continue doing. Maybe it's a matter of turning up the dial for frequency, right? And then you can also ask, hey, how do you show you love me? So you can better understand, oh, you are doing things. It just doesn't come across that way. So you can also start to expand your field of how you perceive their actions, because otherwise, if you had not known that, you would have just been like, he doesn't love me. He doesn't care about me anymore. What's going on? But maybe he does, and he just isn't showing you in a way that you are receiving it, right? Just because you're not receiving it doesn't mean they're not trying to put stuff out there. So it's a little bit of both, right? It's understanding what they're doing. It's also teaching. We have to teach people, just like boundaries, right? Like we teach with boundaries how we want to be treated. We also have to teach people how we want to be loved, but also leave room for flexibility. Give options, maybe even give feedback anytime they do something that's remotely close to it, because we all love to know that we're doing a great job, right? In a sense, we love that. And so anytime your husband does something close to or exactly what you love, let him know. Whether you shower him with more affection, if that's his thing, whether you just give verbal feedback. Oh my gosh, that meant so much to me. Like, I just feel so special because you did that. Like, play it up a little bit, because the more you let them know that's what works, they're going to do it more often. They're like, oh, I found a formula. Okay, I will do this more. Let's do that. So my husband knows I am acts of service, which means that I love when people try and make my life easier. And so what does he do? If he notices that I'm starting to unravel a little bit, he's like, I'll take the kids. You do what you need to do. I'll do the dishes tonight. You just relax. So this is wonderful, because you know what this also means? It also means that on the days where I feel depleted and I absolutely cannot serve another person, I get that moment of reset. And then I come back and I'm like ready to connect with him.
I love this, because the next thing I was going to ask you, you led directly to it, is that relationships are only as good as we are in ourselves in that moment or in that time frame. And you started by talking about this, that you just did this massive developmental process inside yourself to be ready to have a relationship with somebody else who had reached a place of self-actualization, right? We can only be as good as we are alone together.
Yes.
So what about those time frames where one of you is just in a really hard space? Now, everyone who's listening went through this pandemic. They parented through it. Some of them welcomed babies during it. They spent way more time with their partner than they ever expected to for longer periods of time. And a lot of this came up. We were stressed and overwhelmed. Are we going to have a job the next day? Are we not going to have a job the next day? Right now in my life, we've just survived a massive natural disaster, the floods here in southern Vermont. And my husband has been very impacted by this. He's physically exhausted, working ridiculously long hours in terrible settings, trying to clean up the town. It's just gone on and on and on, longer than we're supposed to be in that survival mode. And his mental well-being and his physical well-being were directly affected. And I will be honest, like I usually am for all of you, I did not handle it well. I was like, what is happening to you right now? This energy you're putting off when you get home, the way that you're talking, like, I'm just not digging it, not feeling you. And I had less compassion than I should have for his experience. So I probably just answered my own question, but
yes, you did.
but when one of you is in an elongated state of struggle, how do you maintain that connection when you're just not feeling it?
So I think you hit the nail on the head with the term self-actualization. Okay. So being self-aware is the best, most rewarding thing you can do for yourself. And what I mean by being self-aware is understanding how you feel, being able to identify what that is, being able to understand the source of that, what it's triggering within you, what it's leading you to do, think, feel, and the results that it's creating for you. When you can see exactly how it plays out, you can start to see patterns that you have, because we all have them. We're human. We're literally built to be efficient, right? That's where assumptions come in, and that's where our patterns come in, our habits, right? We are built to be habitual creatures, but that doesn't always serve us, because to be in a healthy relationship, it requires you to be able to be nimble, to pivot. Because when we stay stuck in our ways, we can easily go from, oh, everything's cool, everything is working out as I expect it to, because we have our way of doing things. I do this, you do that. And as soon as that breaks, and something else happens instead, like in your case, he's grumpier, he's less patient, less fun, just all things that are not great to be around. You're like, what the heck? Who are you? And can I have my husband back, please? Because I am over this situation, right?
Yes.
Now, if you were able to, I'm going to talk about capacity, right? Because even if you're self-aware, if you don't have the capacity, you're going to revert back to what you would normally do, which is react, right? Poorly. Now, if you had the capacity to, and met with him like, okay, I don't like what he's doing. He's pissing me off, and work through that on your own and realize, oh, okay, well, he's pissing me off because I'm noticing that I am having to pick up more of his responsibilities at home. I also noticed that the vibe he's giving off at home is way more angry and tense. And that's causing me to feel that same hatred towards him in the moment. And now I'm noticing I don't want to hang out with him. I'm avoiding him. So now I have this view, an aerial view of how my actions and feelings have changed because of this one thing. Okay, now that you've acknowledged your experience, you get to settle in that. Like, okay, it feels good that I now have named it. Now you can be compassionate and say, okay, let me put myself in their shoes. I wonder why they're acting like that, because I'm sure they didn't come in with a goal of, let me see how I can piss off my wife. Let me see how I can wreck my home, right? They don't want to feel like they're a horrible dad or a horrible husband. No way. So there has to be another reason why. Okay, let me put myself in their shoes. What's been going on for them lately? What do I know about what's going on? Oh, working longer hours. He's putting a lot of manual labor. So he's physically exhausted. Maybe it seems like that project is never going to end, and he's feeling drained and hopeless and just defeated, and he just wants it to be over and to go back to normal life. How would I be in that situation? I would be pretty crabby too, and no one would want to be around me either. Oh, okay. Well, now I feel bad for him. What can I do to make this situation better? How would I love someone to support me in this moment? Would I love to be met with anger and resentment and guilt? Probably not. That'd probably cause me to put my walls up and feel like I have nowhere safe to go. Everywhere sucks. I don't want to be at work. I don't want to be at home. Where can I go? Maybe I'll just hang out with my friends all the time and just disappear. right? Instead, you could be like, okay, I acknowledge that this is hard for me. And it's also hard for him. So how can I take my capacity, because I'm not going through what he's going through. I'm dealing with the aftermath, like the product of what's going on.
Right.
So maybe I could check in with him like, hey, I've been noticing that you've been really tired lately and not really yourself. What can I do to support you? And see what happens. It could just take that one question for him to be like, oh, I didn't even realize. Yeah, I am having a really hard time right now. Thank you for asking. You know, what I would really love is just an hour of silence as soon as I get home. Can I do that? Right? Then you can get into problem solving together versus you looking at your partner like they're the enemy because they're not filling their role that you have assumed in your head. Right? We're humans. We are going to go through bad times and hard times. We're not always going to be on our A game. And as partners, we have to acknowledge that that's going to happen. And we can choose to either be there for them and help them get back to capacity or fight them on it and make it feel worse.
Oh, I am shaking. You guys can't see me, but I'm shaking my head as I listen to Michelle talk because there's so many parts of our lives that we don't even realize we compartmentalize. Everything that Michelle just said, the exact cognitive process is how I teach you to collaborate with your toddlers, is how I teach you to control your own emotional regulation so that you can teach your child how to control theirs. And here I am, not applying it to the most important relationship in my life. I am so grateful to you for this episode. It's not very often that I walk away saying, wow, there's something I really need to do differently. And today's that day.
I'm so glad. And you're not alone. I've heard from many parenting experts say the same thing. And you're right. It's like there's a lot of times where we're like, I just know to apply this knowledge to this part of my life. But truly, being able to be self-aware, being able to communicate effectively, and having that thought process of being intentional in relationships benefits all areas of your life.
And here's the thing. If I had to put words to why it's so effortless and easy for me to do it with kids, it's because I realize that they don't actually have the skill sets yet, that it's my job to make sure that I am teaching them directly and through modeling how to develop those skill sets. But if I'm being honest, I guess I made an assumption that adults should be there. I shouldn't have to do that for them. They should be able to already have mastered that because they are a grown-up, which brings us all the way back to the reason we had this conversation in the first place, which is that we are modeling this for our children. And not every child's childhood is surrounded by parents or adults or grandparents that use this way of being and this way of interacting. So this is truly a generational job that we are doing. You are amazing. Your insight, your background, your heart. You have a resource for people if they want to continue this conversation. You have a Marriage Communication Essentials course. Can you please tell us more about this and how they can get it?
Yeah, so I created this course to really give you a foundation that you can quickly absorb and start to utilize in your own life on how to approach communication in a way that creates more openness, more honesty, more emotional intimacy, so that you can deal with the easy stuff, the hard stuff, and have a framework to follow. So through it, you will learn how to have that self-reflective process so that you can go into the conversation feeling way more confident, way more clear. And that way you have the capacity to hear your partner out. The biggest mistake that I see is that people are not properly preparing for conversations ahead of time. And instead, they're kind of thinking it through in the moment. When we're in our heads, trying to figure out what to say next, trying to figure out how we feel about stuff, trying to figure out, what do I think about this? What's my opinion? What do I even want? That's where arguments get derailed and escalate so fast because we haven't taken the time to really process. How do I feel? What do I want? And then they are trying to figure that out during the process while their partner's also trying to figure it out. And then we make assumptions that we don't clarify, and it just turns into a hot mess that gets off topic. Maybe the past gets brought up. Maybe you start to become really literal and hang on to every single word that they're saying. And we know words. Sometimes we kind of take different meaning to different words depending on how you grew up, right? And so instead of actually addressing the issue, you're just fighting about how you're fighting.
And everybody
right?
processes at a different speed.
Yes.
I know I'm fast. My processor is fast. I am 3 steps ahead into the conversation. Whereas I've learned that my husband really, truly just needs me to shut up and give him time to process. And sometimes that's a whole day.
Oh, yeah. My husband's the same. It drives me crazy, but I know that if I don't honor his process, and I push him to talk about things sooner, it will blow up.
Yeah. Here's great news for everybody. Even if this is a constant struggle, which it will be, marriage is work, even if it's a constant evolution over time, your kids are so amazed by you for the work that you're doing. My girls say, I want a relationship that lasts this time like yours has. They look at their grandparents on one side, married 55 years, on the other, married 47 years. And I know that you said time is not an indicator of happiness and connection, which I totally agree with, but it does give kids this idea that when something is hard, we still work at it. We don't just walk away. We don't just throw our hands up and say, well, that got hard. I guess I'm done. And that's a model that they need to follow, not just in their relationships that they prioritize as they grow up, but also take in their core. I started a college class. Oh gosh, this just got hard. Whatever shall I do? I guess I'll persist. Right? My kiddo's moving across the country. She's beyond across the country. I had one do that. I have one moving out of the country. She's beyond excited. Will she face struggles and unexpected hardships? What will she do? How do I solve this so that I can move through to that next place I'm supposed to be? We're practicing and modeling persistence. So keep doing what you're doing. If the relationship that you've chosen, you just still have such high regard and value for, and you are willing to fight, Michelle is your person. So check the show notes, click the link, use the promo code in there. We will get you set up and have these really important conversations with yourself and with your partner and model this beautiful thing called marriage for your kids. Michelle, I am so grateful to you. What a strong episode for me to take home with a new attitude this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive as you transform the toddler years.